To those of you who are watching and who are tweeting, I asked earlier people to tweet stuff that we could try to get on that I could try to get on the record. I'm going to try, and I'm going to fail, but it's on the record because it's
hashtag fail. Big fail will.
Yeah, hashtag Christy has failed. But a couple things. We talked a little bit about the culture of corporate culture and how institutions run. I went to Google recently. I have a friend who works at the Googleplex in New York. If you run an institution, I really would recommend going to Google and getting a tour and looking at how their space is set up, where there are spaces for people to go and sit and hang and play video games or play with Legos as they eat. There's a cafeteria that's really taken care of. They take care of their people in a really specific, on a personal level way. And it's shocking to me that that is Google and that is not theater. That theater doesn't always take care of our people in the same way that Google does. Or at least give that presentation, give the opportunity, I shouldn't say take care of the people, give the opportunity for play and creativity. Those are like their coders and marketing people who are playing with Legos at lunch. So that's one of the first thing. I think, I don't have a specific thing about this, but there was
opportunity, probably the first opportunity to really feel that, and it's been very powerful for us here. And I don't want it to be their house in the sense that this is our house, and we're all kind of figuring out how it is our house. And so I would just encourage everybody to try to frame it in that way. And what do you bring to your house when you come home from the holidays or whatever?
Well, we're getting to that. We're getting to that place. Like you have let us in, and now we're all moving in. So
yeah, come on in. Come on in. And it's not for nothing that we're sitting in this. This is the Molly Smith study. That's why we're having these here. It is what she imagined, and that it's transparent to the world and present with the history is all part of what we're doing.
I think we should acknowledge this too. This is an extraordinary space, and it's been really wonderful to be here. And so, yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, all that stuff, congratulations. Sorry those of you who aren't in it, but you're in it as well. Who's got thoughts to where we can go?
I would take maybe the date that you're...
Go for it, yeah, jump to
So, I put something on my blog last week because of this question of the model, right? The model being is the model broken? Is it a business model? Is it the nonprofit model? What's the model? Do we want one model, or as Ed really eloquently said, we're trying to take idiosyncratic processes and potentially find a model. And I had put up on the site that this Stanford business school professor had once given me this definition, that a model is a representation of your beliefs about causality.
I'll use my stage voice. This is Shashir Kurup and Cornerstone, and a lot of conversations. I think one of the most exciting things that came out this weekend is all this technology. And I'm not as worried about it sort of dehumanizing. I feel like we're all very human and very aware of our humanity, and that's why we're artists, and that's why we write, sometimes by hand and with words on paper. But how the conversations that have been exciting me is that I started thinking about these kinds of places now as multi-purpose facilities, and a better word was I'm going to talk about our little group that was just there, which was a fantastic group, and Rachel brought up the word cultural center, which is like more of the European model. And the idea is coming up with how are we going to get the 20-something folk into the theater, right? And because they are organizing like crazy out there, they know how to go to places, and there are thousands of people showing up, lines around the block to get into a space at night, and we don't know what's going on in there. Well, we do. I mean, it's being programmed in the way for the things that they want to hear, they want to talk about, they want to see. And actually multiculturalism and diversity and all these words that we have such a particular relationship with are happening. They're just happening. They're not being talked about, they're not being, they're actually just existing. And so one of the ideas I've been really interested in is like Friday and Saturday nights, there's no more, now we can see into the building. Before there used to be walls, you couldn't see into the building. But is that enough? Because then it becomes like that restaurant in the 30s where you can sit there and there's somebody eating a steak and you've got your nose against the window, right? So how do we now go beyond the glass, open up the glass, go through? So it's about this flow that happens. Ownership of this space by the community around. And then, in a way, connection to this space of the community with the community. So the flow goes that way too. Senior staff, we were talking about senior staff, the money people going out there, and the folks coming in here. And that is, so shows are over by 10 o'clock. At LATC back in the day when we used to do a thing called the platform, because there was nothing around. There was, no redevelopment had happened 20 years ago like it is now happening with the art walks and the restaurants and all that. So we would do a show called the platform. It was a cabaret, it was a political cabaret, and after the show, you bring your ticket that you'd gone to see a show, you'd get for $5 more, you would get a drink, and you'd go see a show. And that was the midnight show. Here we could do, or any other place, another cultural center around the country. These all become cultural centers, and they start doing, they're programming things for $10, and you do, Facebook and tweeting are the way you get it out. You don't do any other kind of advertising. I'm using things I'm hearing this whole weekend. And what you start doing is you're programming music in one space, spoken word in another one, and then whatever else you want to do with the third space. We have lots of ideas, and we can put that out there, right? So then the community starts having ownership of the space. If we really are opening the doors, because I know we're all in this room and we've been invited in here, and you're saying welcome to the house, and of course moving in is always difficult once you move in. But you're really trying to move in with the community out here, because we're going home, and we'll hopefully continue to stay here. But how do you open that up? So the cultural center, multi-purpose facility, the flow between this organization going out there and the people coming in. And I think you then also start, maybe the programming changes because you've got all these people coming in every Friday and Saturday night, doing work in here that people from here go see, and how does that affect the work that gets programmed in here ultimately, It's one of a few things, but I won't go on talking about it. I'll come back to other stuff.
I'll jump in. That was great to hear. Am I near the mic? I guess I would think going forward...
Amy Freed.
Sorry. That part of going forward, this will sound bad, I guess, would also be going backwards a little bit as well, in that theater has always been, I think, at its best, or the things that are not just ephemeral expressions of theater have illuminated the inner life of man to man, have touched people no matter what their station, have shocked us by going, oh, who is that voice? Who is that person? Where did that come from out of that person? And when the singular voice is given true platform, all of us are touched universally by it. So in all of the assets and speed and facility afforded by technology, I hope it doesn't turn into more theaters losing their literary departments, more theaters reading less. Writing is slow, reading is slow, absorbing is slow, and I think we're curators of the slow as well, the last holdouts for the slow. And rather than rushing to lure the young, we also need to be respecting the young and preparing a space for them that we think is a good, humane space for them to occupy as mature people. So we're mentors and teachers and protectors also of a culture that wants to commodify. We're the last holdouts against commodity. And when money flows and money talks, and it talks to every one of us, including me, and it's so insidious and so attractive, we also have to remember we can't ever be truly, truly great friends with money and art in its most important function for us. So it has to be, I think, a relationship with a little bit of healthy suspicion, because the artist is also a dissident for all of us and is braver than the rest of us. The brave artists who are willing, I mean, artists were always like the most unpopular people, never the popular kids. And so I think theaters need a space. Most important to me is going forward that there's a space that is religious, that guards for the protection of the brave and the institutions. And I was struck by the bravery of all the people that produce theater in a way that it's never quite hit me before. This was a powerful few days for me because the courage and the thanklessness and the true believers that produce theater, and how much they love it, how much they're drawn to it. And there's a kind of a in-the-trenches quality that can't be forgotten if the art's to stay vital. So before we hold hands too happily with everything that promises, a connective future, I think we also have to stay a little prickly about it, I guess.
I think it's so,
Need a
I'm
mic.
between mics. I think it's so,
And you are.
Dee Dee, hi, I'm Dee Dee. This thing that we've been talking about dissolving some of the artificial boundaries that live in these models that no longer seem to apply. And I feel like something that happens is that you got this great vibe, and then you're like, okay, how did I do that? And you start to figure out how you did that, and you create a model of how you did that. And then that makes it easier to talk about. We do this. You can get funding when you can explain what you do, and and then after a while, that's how you do things. And then you discover it doesn't apply to you anymore. And the problem is that if you then figure out what you do now and you model that and you define that, and then you can talk about that better, it sort of goes into that thing you were saying where diversity, the word, multiculturalism, the prior word, they were so useful, and then after a while they became these constraining things because definitions start to, what does that mean? And so I guess the thing that I'm really interested in seeing happen soon, because it's in my head and I can make it happen, is kind of the dissolution of some of the assumptions, like Mayim was talking about, we're all just going to be theater artists. I think we are. I think we're all just theater artists, and where we specialize may be a little more specific and individual, but I like the idea of the dissolving of that a little bit. I like the fact that we have been dissolving words like diversity a little bit in here. And I like the idea of just having those conversations more openly with the possibility of redefining ourselves or sharing definitions and in conversation defining ourselves rather than necessarily coming up with new formulas and new models, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Stephen Sapp, Universes. I think one thing I've really felt over this last couple of days is it's great to be included in conversations like this and to be able to walk around and recognize people. And there's a sense of like, wow, I actually know so-and-so. And that feels great. And then it's a sense of sadness where I know tons of artists who are not in this room and haven't reached a point where they get invited to this conversation. So what I think is happening, and we kind of do it on our own, but I know what's happening. A lot of artists are beginning to bond together and have conversations that are not funded, and they're having these conversations about how to survive and how to move. And like I was saying in my group, even about what did you get from one gig to the next, that